first reading we had is The Origins and Evolution of Terrorism. And what the reading does for us is it gives some background to terrorism in general, leading up to the big United States terrorist attack of 9/11. So let's jump into it. Early in the reading, it goes back and gives us some examples of terrorism that have occurred over the past few centuries. The first one it mentioned was the Reign of Terror. You may not be familiar with the name Reign of Terror. However, you very well might be familiar with the killing device that was used during the Reign of Terror. The Reign of Terror happened in 1793 in France, and that killing device used was the guillotine. If you don't know what the guillotine is, don't hesitate to throw it in your Google search and see what comes up. And if you see it, when you do that, you might realize that you do know what it is. You just didn't know the name of it. In any case, keep in mind the French Revolution is a pro-democracy movement, and yet 4 years into this pro-democracy movement, you have a reign of terror that's happening in France. It's a really unique situation when you have a bunch of people fighting for democracy, looking to overthrow a king, and yet, sure enough, there is a reign of terror. During 1793, approximately 16,000 people are sent to the guillotine. At the bottom of the screen, there are two other types of terrorism that I want to touch on and make sure that we understand. The first is state-sponsored terror. The second one is terror of the state. We see the word state in both of those, and we just want to make sure that we understand how they are different from one another. When we mention the word state here, it's representing a nation. So terror of the nation or nation-sponsored terror. That's how the terms there can be phrased. State-sponsored terror, here's an example where you don't have a nation that is committing terrorism. Rather, the state or the nation, it has access to a terrorist group, provide the terrorist group with what they need in order to perform terrorist attacks. That's how state-sponsored terrorism works, whereas terror of the state is the nation itself is carrying out terrorism. One of the next key items brought up in the reading is what happened in Munich, Germany at the 1972 Olympics. But to better understand that, let's go back to the 1950s and understand something about televisions. Post-World War II, as things came to a close and the economy of the United States started to take off, televisions became the new medium for entertainment, and they started coming into the homes. Televisions not only enter the homes of those in the United States, but will also enter homes of people in different countries across the world. That's in the 1950s. As you move through the decades into the 50s, 60s, and into eventually the 1970s, more and more people have televisions, but you still have limited networks, and therefore you have limited programming. When the 72 Olympics come along, you have a large number of people watching the 1972 Olympics. So when this terrorist attack takes place, the world is going to see the terrorist attack. And that's a big deal. For the terrorists, this is a turning point because they see the amount of power that comes out of television and a worldwide audience viewing the attack. A key takeaway from what I just mentioned there and what we're about to get into is the fact that terrorists have purpose. They are not just committing terrorist attacks to commit them. They are committing terrorist attacks because they have purpose. They have a cause as to why they are committing an attack. Those reasons vary. So you see a few listed here: religion, oppression, mental instability. There are more, but there are a large number of people, and this includes professionals, that are apparently well versed on the subject of terrorism, but suggest that it's really hard to understand why someone might commit a terrorist attack. But if you are someone fighting for a cause, people are willing to go to great lengths to fight that cause. So maybe it should be no surprise that somebody might go to this type of extreme, one type of extreme where you're willing to lose your life in order to fight for your cause. For the United States, the main concerns for it have been the increase in state and religious terrorism. And that's what the next couple of readings will be about regarding the United States and the terrorism that it faces in the more recent history up to today. It's important to note that last idea. There are reasons why people commit terrorist attacks. It's not just a because and we shrug our shoulders. So in order to better understand terrorism, you and I are going to have to better understand reasons behind why terrorist attacks are committed. Very important. Next time we'll move on to terrorist attacks that have had a very direct impact on the United States, including 9/11, and start moving on from there into the reaction by the United States and the impact that that has had. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.